Hello YouTubers, Alaska Prepper here. I hope everyone had a good week and I hope everyone's enjoying their weekend thus far. Well, I went ahead and compiled all of the questions that were asked on that one video that I put up, asking you guys to jot down some questions that you may have. That way I can compile them. And I probably have about a dozen or so questions. So I'm going to go ahead and read and answer some of these off. First, I want to shout out some new subscribers. My apologies to any of you that I may miss. Fortunately, I've had so many subscribers in the last week or so that it would probably take me probably a whole video to shout all of you guys out. So here's the latest one is Daniel Wilson, then Josh, Deshays, Short and Stubby, Brianna Barnhart, Nomad Survival Forum, Amber Moore, Susan Kaiser Muse, Michelle Connolly, Lonely Prepper Homestead. That's a nice name. That's Surreal 7. Iron Dog 63. Joanne Hinckley, Rebecca Hammond, Linda Harrison, Stephanie Palmer, Christy Witherspoon, Mary Miller, Kay's Favorite Things, 351 Winchester, nice name, and Gary H. Hey, thank you all for subscribing. I really appreciate it, and I really hope that you are enjoying the content and that you're getting some value out of it. And like always, please feel free to comment, leave questions, leave suggestions, recommendations. Those are the things that help other people out. So, and of course, if you all find any value in the content and you enjoyed it, please do feel free to smash the like button and share it. And if you're not subscribed, what are you waiting for? All right, so let's get on with the questions. So I got a question from Moat Cottage, and Moat Cottage, I'm assuming, is from Australia, and her question is, I'm wondering why you have the Australian koala as your picture. And then she says, cheers from Australia. So she must be from Australia. Well, for two reasons. First reason is that I think that little koala is really cool looking. I always thought that koalas were really cute, and I would in no way whatsoever harass you guys by showing you an ugly mug of my face. Okay, I want my subscribership to go up, not down. Okay, second question is from Spear Hunt. Do you hunt, and how much land do you own? I guess it depends on what you mean by hunt. I want to hunt big game like moose and caribou. However, I haven't had a chance to do that for the last few years that I've been here because I've been busy building my house. So, in case many of you don't know, after I retired, I told my wife that I never want to have a mortgage again. And my son and I, about a year before I retired, about a year before I retired, I told my wife, listen, when I retire, I don't ever want to have a mortgage because we were renting at the time. And once we made that decision, my son and I started clearing out a little bit of land that we got. And we cleared it out from the beginning. We chopped down all the trees, we processed the wood, all the stuff that you have to do to clear land. It's pretty boring. So, but anyways, we cleared out the land and we started building a house. And it took us about a year to get the house where it was livable. So the outside of the house wasn't finished when we moved in. It still needs siding, and it actually still needs siding today because this was only a year ago that we started doing this. So the house was completely livable inside. The inside is about 95% done. All it needs on the inside is some trim, you know, around the ceilings and the floors. And then the inside is pretty much done. The outside needs, you know, still siding. But anyways, that's what we did. We decided that instead of having a mortgage, we were going to build a house as we went. We built the house. We're living in it now. It's probably about, I would say, about 85 to 90% finished on the outside. And that's what's been using up or taking up 99% of my time for the last year and a half, 2 years that I've been here. So I haven't really had a chance to hunt big game. I want to, and I will eventually go big game hunting. I really like the taste of caribou meat. And my wife likes the taste of caribou meat, and pretty much my family does. Moose, I don't like the taste that much. It's edible to me. It's a little gamey. But if I had my choice, I would rather hunt caribou because I would rather eat that than to eat moose. And I don't own that much land. I own probably around 2 acres of land. But for what I needed is plenty. Eventually, I plan on getting more land north of where I live now, where it's more isolated. But the challenges up there are a little bit bigger. So I'm not living in the bush. You know, I don't live in the bush like you see some of these people do, where they live in a little cabin, 1-bedroom cabin, and they have to do everything for themselves. I do have electricity, but that's pretty much the only utility that I have that I pay for. Everything else I have to go and get for myself. I have to get my own fuel. I have to get my own water. I take care of my own trash and things like that. So I hope that answers your question, Spear Hunt. But when I do start hunting, I'll put up some pictures. If you want to call fishing hunting, I guess you can say that. Last year I did go dip netting for salmon, and it ended up getting, you know, probably about 25-30 pounds of salmon, which is really not that much. Well, you know, when you go dip netting, I was allowed 55 salmon as far as my limit went, and I only brought home like six salmon or something like that. But each salmon is pretty good size, so the amount of salmon that I got, with as much as my family eats, will last us all year, because we only make like maybe 1 meal a month out of salmon, and that's enough. But the salmon is the best. You can't beat it. Okay. All right. David Green 2. He asked, what part of Alaska do you live in? Well, I live north of Fairbanks. I live probably about 15-20 miles north of Fairbanks. And it's in a town called Fox. And the only unique thing that I can tell you about that town in Fox is that they have a spring well. So they have a well that gets water from a spring. And I do believe that it's one of 2 in the entire state. And it's free to the public. A lot of people go there to get their drinking water. And the drinking water from there is really good. But yeah, I live north of Fairbanks. Probably takes me about 25-30 minutes to get into town, which is fine. It's far enough, and it's not that close, and it's not that far. R. Connor asks, can you see the northern lights? Yes, we can. Depending on the cloud cover, we can see the northern lights really nice. The best example that I can give you of the nicest lights I've seen once, I was actually leaving to go to work one morning, and it was probably around 6-7 in the morning. Around 6-7 in the morning, and it was still really dark outside, and it was a really clear night, or clear morning, I guess you can say. It was during the winter, obviously, because it was really dark. And the northern lights were really nice because there was a few of them playing around up there. So there was a big stream. It looked like an ocean or a river going through the sky, and it was like green. And then there was a few northern lights on the opposite side just jumping around. So that was really cool. I wish that my camera can capture that stuff. I don't think it can. I think there might be an app out there. And if I can find an app that will capture that, the next time we see them, I'll go ahead and take some video of it. Probably might not be for a while now, though, because now we're gaining sunlight at a pretty rapid pace, which is a good thing. So I got quite a few questions from Mama Vinova, and her first one is, how does your family view prepping, and is your wife a prepper? Well, at first, I've been prepping for a while, and at first, I would say that my wife and my kids thought that it was kind of like a hobby, you know, and that maybe it was kind of like a phase I was going through. But then after a couple of years, and after me talking to my wife and my kids about, you know, why prepping is important, and I kept talking to them about it and telling them this is why it's important. You know, I've never made them do anything they didn't want to do. And to this date, I do most of the prepping, but I'm not discouraged to do it by my family. And like my wife, if she sees something that's on sale or something like that, and she thinks there's a good prep, she'll actually get it and say, hey, look, this stuff was on sale. It looks like it's a good thing to have. So I would say that she's not a full-blown prepper, but she supports me doing it, and she understands why I do it. Mama Benova adds again, how did you get started prepping? Do you include your kids? Okay, this is kind of like the same thing. Well, I got started prepping, I want to say probably about, goodness gracious, probably been about 6-7 years now that I've been prepping. And I got started prepping actually after clicking on a few videos on YouTube just by hapstance. And I was completely asleep to the circumstances in the world and to the things that can happen to our economy and all these things. I don't ever prep for one thing. I just prepare from the notion that if something happens and I can't get this, can I do without it? And if the answer is no, I can't do without it, I get some. So I'm not like preparing for a natural disaster. I'm not preparing for an economic collapse. I'm not preparing for SHCF, for anything like that. I'm just preparing, period, because I think everyone should be prepared. Let's see. And yes, I do include my kids. They help me whenever I ask them, but they don't volunteer themselves, okay? Mama Vinova, one more. Do you explain concepts with your children regarding preps and world situation? I absolutely do. I have a child who's an adult who is 100% on board with what's going on in the world because he's actually really smart and he can see for himself. And once I opened his eyes, he could see for himself. And you know, he doesn't go out looking for stuff, but he can identify a situation by looking at it. He can tell, well, yeah, this is the cause of this, or this is the cause of that. And this is probably a good reason why to prep. Okay, like my son secures some of his wealth in silver as well, just like me. And I taught him that, and I taught him why. And yeah, and he understands that, as well as my daughter. My daughter is a little younger, but I still do explain to her some of the fundamentals, you know, on everything. Not just, I'm a finance guy, you know, I like researching monetary policies, and I like researching, you know, economics around the world and all that stuff like that. So, you know, I've taught my daughter some of the basic concepts of what real money is and why we should prep and things like that. I don't try to engulf them with it because that's a really easy way to make them distance themselves from the one thing you want to show them. So I give them a lot of room. David Green 2, can you do a video showing how to seal your preps in buckets? Hey, David Green 2, yes, I've done a video like that. It was one of my first few videos. Go back, and I do believe that the video is titled something like how to store long-term food storage. But you'll see, I do believe that the video starts off with a bucket with a couple big bags of beans. And can I leave things in original packaging when I put them in Mylar bags? Yeah, if you take a look at that video as well, the same one that I just told you to refer to, yes, you can. So for example, let's say that you're storing away a 15-pound bag of rice in a Mylar bag. You can leave the rice in its original bag, put it inside of the Mylar bag, and yes, you poke a few holes on top of the bag that the rice came in. That will allow for the oxygen absorber to get to the oxygen that's inside the rice. Okay? That was a good question, by the way. You definitely don't want to, you know, put rice in there, put an oxygen absorber in there, and then have the bag that the rice came in still sealed, where all of the oxygen that's in there is still going to be in there and protected by that, you know, by that packaging. Mark L, do you have wasting disease in your wildlife? I don't know. I know what wasting disease is, and from the animals that I've seen, because we see a lot of moose, in this area where I live all year round. We see moose on a pretty regular basis, except for the deep of the winter. You know, when it's really, really cold out, they usually go in country a little more. From what I think, because in the real winter, when it's really cold, I don't see them that often. But when it's not that cold, they're usually out here pecking at the side of the roads, at the trees and stuff like that. But the ones that I've seen look pretty healthy. And from what I understand, wasting disease makes animals like lose a lot of weight, and they look really skinny. And to tell you the truth, most of the wild animals that I've seen around here, even the foxes and I've seen a wolf one time. So I can't say wolves, but the wolf that I've seen and the foxes that I've seen, they all look really healthy, to tell you the truth. Copperhouse Farm. Where do you buy your silver farm? Oh, sorry. Where do you buy your silver from? There's a small, there's actually a couple of coin stores or coin shops in town that sell precious metals. And I usually visit one of the two. I know that there's a couple of pawn shops as well. I purchased silver in one of those pawn shops a few years back because they were selling them at spot price, which is awesome. But I usually visit the same store all the time because I know the people there and I trust them, and I've never had any problems as far as getting the real thing from them. I don't ever have to worry about whether the silver that I bought from them is real or not. And another reason why I buy from the store in town is because I pay a little extra buying from the store in town than I would if I got it online. But I would rather just leave that extra money that I pay here in the local economy than sending it off to a different state. Kim Hill, where else have you lived? And is living in Alaska easier as a prepper? Well, I've lived in many places. You know, I've lived in a lot of places in the U.S. I've lived in New York, North Carolina. I've lived in Washington. I've lived in Michigan. And, of course, here in Alaska. And I guess saying, is living in Alaska easier as a prepper? The truth is like I said before, I don't live in the bush. So it's not like I don't have the amenities that I wouldn't have if I was living in the bush. You know, if I want to go to Walmart, I can. You know, if I need gasoline, I'm only, you know, 15, 20, 25 minutes away from a gas station, depending what gas station I go to. Okay, so, you know, I guess living here as a prepper would be, I would say it's pretty much the same as anywhere else that I've lived. But I do know that being a prepper in Alaska, you may not say, oh, I'm a prepper, but you're definitely prepared a lot more than your average person, you know, probably in the lower 48. Okay, because here in Alaska, I would bet that almost everyone here in Alaska probably at least has candles in the house or some kind of alternate lighting, because during the winter time, we lose power on a pretty frequent basis. We've actually been very lucky this winter. We've lost power a few times and not for more than 3 or 4 hours. So yeah, I would say that living in Alaska, you're probably just by nature a better prepper than most people in the lower 48, just because you have to be. Marcia W. What are you afraid of that you are prepping? And are you worried about this country turning into Syria? No, I'm not afraid of anything because I'm prepping. I'm not worried about this country turning into Syria. The truth of the matter is that everyone is a prepper, if you want to think about it. If you have life insurance, you're a prepper. You're prepping by buying life insurance in the case that you pass away, so that your family can have something to fall back on. If you have a spare tire in your vehicle, you're a prepper. You're prepping so that if you get a flat, you won't be stranded and you'll be able to change the tire and carry on with your day. As far as being afraid, absolutely not. You know, I don't live my life in fear. If I wasn't a prepper, I would probably be more worried about things happening that are out of my control, like, for example, the delivery system for our food that we get here, maybe going offline for a week or two, and me not being able to get anything at the supermarkets. You know, things like that, not being able to get fuel for my heater in the house. So I would be worried about the delivery system failing and me not being able to get the things that sustain us for a period of time. So that's why I prep. For example, my main heater in my house takes fuel oil. So I don't just fill up my tank and then wait until it goes empty and fill it up again. I have about a 300-gallon reservoir outside of my house that I go and use to fill up my fuel tank for my stove. And that 300-gallon reservoir will last me the whole year. So if you want to look at it that way too, if you want to say that's prepping also, because if I wanted, I could just wait until my fuel is almost out and then fill it up, hoping that I'll fill it up before it runs out of fuel. But instead, I fill up a big tank that I know will last me all year long. Okay, so no, you know, if you live in fear, then something's wrong. If you're living in fear, then there's definitely something wrong. Okay, so you shouldn't live in fear. Prepping should actually make you not live in fear. Prepping should actually help you be more comfortable with the things that are going on, because you know that if something does happen, if there is a natural disaster, if there is a disturbance in the supply of goods, that you'll be ready to tackle that and that your family will be okay. I got a couple other questions from Mark Connor. What part of the military were you in, and do you miss New York? I served in the United States Army, and I do not miss New York. I haven't been there in 20 years, and I will never go back. Brain dead New Yorker, don't take offense to this. It's just I'm never going back there. You can never own anything in New York at all. I mean, even if you own something, you're still a slave to the system with your property taxes. Okay, and it's extremely expensive to live in New York. And R. Connor, I already answered this question, but he asked, do you live in the bush? No, I do not live in the bush. Gabriela Zavala, where are you from? How old are you? And when did you start prepping? Well, I already answered the last part of that question. I started prepping about 7 years ago or so. I am over 40. Where are you from? I was raised in New York. I lived probably the first 18 years of my life in New York. I was born in the Caribbean, and I immigrated to this nation when I was about 3 years old. Okay. Last question, Sa Lee. What do you do for a living? Well, I am retired from the military, number one, but I do have a job, hopefully not for too much longer, because I'm planning on retiring for good here within the next year or so. And what I do is I'm a quality assurance technician. I won't specify who I work for exactly, but I'm a quality assurance technician. I just make sure that the quality of the work that's being performed meets the standard that the company says it should meet. And that's pretty much it. Wow, this video has gone long, ladies and gentlemen. We're over 23 minutes right now. So let me finish it off with, ladies and gentlemen, remember to be good to each other, because when good people do good things happen. Reach one, teach one, repeat. If you do this, then the world will be a better place. Many blessings to you and your families. This is Alaska Prepper, and I'm out.